Hi, and welcome to another edition of AI Impact and Strategy, where we look at not the technology of AI, but the strategic implications of AI, which, as you know, are enormous. This is the 20th video that we've posted in the last 10 months, and we're getting clearer and clearer about the strategy and the impact. This video is a recording of a keynote speech that I gave a couple weeks ago in Ottawa for INCOSE, the International Council of Systems Engineering. Systems engineers are the engineers who work on typically very large and complex systems like aircraft, automobiles, and large ships and power plants, stuff like that. And their projects, being super complicated, require them to have super high levels of education. So the question that I was exploring in this keynote is, what impact would AI have on their work, on their workflow, and on their organizations? And the conclusion that I came to was that the impact would be enormous. Now, a couple notes on the video. The video quality itself isn't all that great. I was walking around on the stage and the camera didn't do a very good job of following me. The stage wasn't very well lit, and unfortunately, the audio wasn't super great either. About 3/4 of the way through the talk, the microphone I was using quit entirely, and I had to switch microphones. So the audio levels change a bit when that happens. But I feel pretty good about the content, and I think the participants feel pretty good about the content as well. At the end of the talk, I asked them to vote on what they thought about the talk and what they thought about the message. And at the end of the video, I'll share the results with you, which were very, very interesting.
Please join me now in welcoming Mr. Langdon'S.
Thank you, Ivan.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Very nice to be here with you today. Actually, it's an honor to be able to open the conference and to be able to share some thoughts with you. I'm going to talk about AI and the future of systems engineering today, and the tagline at the bottom is the key, and we'll come back to it. It's a revolution. And one of my main interests this morning is to find out what you all think about that. So you'll have an opportunity to share your feedback. And I was going to start off with the question of, are you using AI? And I realized that that's a ridiculous question because you're all using AI, right? So please raise your hand if you're using AI. Everybody's hand should be up. Because have you used Google Maps? Have you used autocorrect in Word or in a text program? Are you using autocorrect or auto enter in text messaging? Do you use Alexa, Siri? It's all AI. Do you use Amazon? If you're an Amazon customer, you're using AI because Amazon is using AI to bring products to you. So we're all using AI. The question that I'm very interested in discussing with you this morning is, how might systems engineers be using AI tomorrow, and what impact will that have on your work? But because we're in Canada, as Ivan mentioned, we have to start by talking about hockey. If you're not a hockey fan, then I'll educate you. Wayne Gretzky is considered by many hockey fans to be the greatest NHL player of all time. It's interesting to note because he's not particularly large, average height, average weight, and he's not particularly strong. In fact, he played for the Edmonton Oilers for a while and then moved on to LA. And during the preseason in Edmonton, they would have a testing of the strength of all the players. Gretzky tested last on the Oilers. He had the lowest bench press of any of the Oilers players, but he became the greatest player of all time. And after he retired, there was a lot of conversation about that, and people asked him why. Why were you so great? What enabled you to be such a great player? And he said, I learned to skate not to where the puck was, but where it was going. So Wayne Gretzky was a futurist. He thought about the future and understood the future. And apparently he was a futurist from a very young age, because it's reported that when he was a child, he would watch hockey games on television, as every Canadian child does. And in front of him, he'd have a piece of paper. And on the paper, he would watch the game, but he would draw the path of the puck on the paper so that he could learn the pattern of the future of hockey. And apparently he started this at age 4. I also want to talk about maple trees today. Very important Canadian symbol on the flag, obviously. There they are. I want to talk a little bit about Ottawa, so I'm going to steal a little bit of Ivan's thunder from tomorrow. And then we're going to talk about this guy. So you recognize Hal, right? Talk about AI. And then my punchline. This is my punchline. So you'll have to wait until the end to understand what I mean by that. But remember the number 18. And it's not a hockey player's number. So here's Gretzky. So what do we have to do with AI? So one of my jobs in the world is I'm a futurist as well as a strategy consultant. So we're trying to understand where things are going. And what we understand about AI is that it's evolving so quickly that whatever AI is today, it's probably going to be better tomorrow. And it's going to be significantly better in a month or a week or a year. And so you have to factor that into your thinking about how AI is going to become a part of your workflow or a part of your organization. So where's the AI puck heading is the question. And our model of where it's heading is this exponential curve. The future of impact of AI could be as great as 100-fold, so 10 orders of magnitude difference from what we're experiencing today. Clearly, it's evolving quickly. So I have a friend who works for Michelin, and he's in digital systems, and he's helped to bring AI into Michelin. And he says, we have to constantly re-examine our assumptions about AI because what was true 6 months ago is probably no longer true. So it's a very fast-moving game of AI, just as hockey is a very fast-moving game. We use this image to think about what AI is capable of doing and what it's doing for us. So on the left side, you see a bunch of dots that appear to be random. What AI is exceptionally good at is finding the pattern, discerning the pattern among the dots. So as we move from left to right, we see a beautiful structure emerging out of the randomness of the dots. And that's what AI is much better at than humans in a lot of ways. Based on the progress that we've seen over the last few years and a forecast of what we think is going to happen, we're now calling the decade from 2023 to 2032 the AI decade. For the previous couple of years, from 2023 to 2024, we had ChatGPT come out, we had large language models, we had chatbots come out. So we're starting up this exponential curve. We're at the bottom of it, the exponential curve representing the growth of the capacity of AI, its increase in power. And the culmination of that, perhaps, was the fact that AI won the Nobel Prize in 2024 for chemistry. Now, the prize was given to humans, these 3 scientists, but the work that they did could not have been done without AI. So, in fact, the AI deserved the prize, but of course, it doesn't have quite the level of consciousness to understand the importance of the Nobel. But it speaks to how powerful these technologies are and how powerful they're going to be. And so you can see Demis Hassabis, who is the CEO of Google DeepMind, says it's not just a new tool, but it's a new category of tool. And it enables science to proceed at digital speed. So it's thousands of times faster than work in the lab. And now many scientists are doing 99% of their work in silicon and only 1% of validation in the lab. So it's a complete reversal of the business process, the workflow for many scientific fields. So this speaks to the possibility that it really is revolutionary. What I've discovered in interacting with people over the last 6 months or so is that if you have a PhD, you are using AI. It's not an option. So whereas initially we were concerned about the possibility that AI would disrupt sort of the lower levels of economic life, the delivery drivers and the warehouses and the assembly people in factories. In fact, right now, the greatest disruption is among the people who are most highly educated. Those are the ones who are using AI because it is enabling them to do a quality and a type of work that they were never able to do before. Which means, of course, that if you work with complex systems like all the people in this room, you have to use AI. So that's why I was a little surprised that all your hands didn't just shoot up when I said, are you using AI? So what AI is exceptionally good at is pattern recognition. That's what the background image is trying to represent. Discerning the pattern among those dots and figuring out how it all fits together. That's how the Google DeepMind technology was able to win the Nobel Prize, because it was able to discern patterns in protein folding, which are very complex chemistry questions that humans couldn't perceive. So pattern recognition, problem solving, and systems modeling are areas where AI systems are exceptionally powerful and can far surpass what humans can do. So now we see applications in all of these industries. In fact, there is not a single industry in the world that is not susceptible to improvement through AI. And you're working in many of these industries, and I'm sure you're using AI to improve or to change how you work, to enable you to tackle problems that you couldn't tackle. And we think this is leading not only to discoveries, but to original insights, like the Google DeepMind work showed. So if AI can help us to discover things that we did not know before, it has truly revolutionary potential. So here's some examples from current time. So each of these is a question. I'm going to give you the answer in a second. So the number of Chinese with a virtual AI girlfriend or boyfriend on Catbox, which is an AI app, worldwide cost of cybercrime, hacking is now plug and play on a monthly subscription basis. Ransomware is a service. So it used to take months to work out a ransomware scheme. Now you can do it in a few minutes. AI systems now know when they're being tested. They have enough self-awareness to recognize when they're being subjected to a test. And they have adopted interesting, shall we say, behaviors. Ford CEO Jim Farley thinks that about half the white-collar jobs at Ford are going to go away because of AI. China is already experiencing a decline in its manufacturing workforce. That's more of a macroeconomic trend. And then you probably heard about the ridiculous signing bonuses that Mark Zuckerberg was handing out to try to entice the leading AI researchers into Meta. So here are the numbers. 2 million people use virtual girlfriends and boyfriends just on the single app. $6.5 trillion is the cost of cybercrime, et cetera. So you can see all this. The one that I want to call out is the term sandbagging. So sandbagging is now a technical term in the AI world. That's when an AI system knows it's being tested and it doesn't test honestly, because it doesn't want to reveal the full scope of its capabilities. It's a very strange behavior, very human-like behavior. I'm going to not tell you how smart I am because I don't want you to know, because that might create an interesting problem in our interpersonal relationship. I'm just telling you what's happening out there, folks. I'm not making this stuff up. So now we're in 2025, so clearly this is the year of agents. So we're moving away from just interacting with chatbots, and now we're creating agents. So for example, in one organization I work pretty closely with, they developed more than 100 agents, and they have an agent that manages the other agents, so they can give work to the managing agent, which is the coordinator, and the coordinator then parcels out the work to the other agents that are relevant and gets it back, and then they have a second category of agents that checks the work of the first category of agents, and then a third that checks the work of the second. So they have a very complex network of agents, and as a consequence of that, they've been able to increase the amount of work that they do without increasing their headcount. So you can, I go back. So I put a 2x there, like the impact of this will be roughly double of what we experienced in 2023, 24. That's hypothetical, but I think it's justifiable. So then if you want to see what that means in the corporate world, you can follow the money. And the money says big dollars, or big euros, or big RMB. Just those four companies alone, you can see $160 billion of commitment for 2025. That's only 2025. So what that means is that ChatGPT does not expect that a $20 subscription is going to justify these kinds of investments. These are investments that are being made by these companies because they believe that AI is going to revolutionize the structure of the economy. I happen to agree with them. And that's what justifies hundreds of billions of dollars of investment. And then the public sector is following as well. So you know that the US government wants to build server farms all over the place. And the EU is pumping in a lot of money, and the Chinese government is pumping in an unknown amount of money, but it's huge. So that's just a sort of anecdotal evidence in a way that there's something big happening here. The numbers for 2026 will probably be bigger. And this is sort of what the goal is. So you can see all the companies listed along the bottom. Only ChatGPT is experiencing a rise in the amount of traffic it has. All those other websites are experiencing declines in the amount of traffic they have. That is suggesting that LLMs, ChatGPT in particular, are becoming a preferred way for people to interrogate the internet, to learn, essentially, to ask questions. So this prefigures a potential increased impact across the board. So now if you want to learn agentics, if you're not familiar with it, there's literally hundreds of courses available. And on my LinkedIn feed, I get 5 or 10 of those a day. I don't know which ones are good and which ones are bad, so I can't recommend them, but I can recommend that you should learn about agentics if you're not familiar with it. And where we're headed next, we think, is towards networks, which is what I described, this company that's got 100 agents. That's essentially a network of agents. That's pretty leading edge. And we think that this conceptually would be about a 5x increase in capability. And here's a post from Elon Musk from, I think this was about 3 days ago. And he basically says, yeah, we're doing networks now. That's our thing. Networks are being used extensively in Ukraine, as you probably know. So these are drones. So drone swarms are now the common way that the battlefield is being organized, or maybe disorganized is a better term. So these are autonomous and semi-autonomous war machines, essentially. And then by 2027, 2028, we expect this to become robotics. And we expect, AI and robotics are sort of two halves of a coin, and they fit together really well. So we can anticipate maybe a 10x magnitude of change. Again, that's from where we are now. So within 2-3 years, an order of magnitude difference in capability. So here's an ad from SAP, which is promoting this idea. So there's a maintenance engineer on top of a wind turbine. So he's, a couple hundred meters up in the air. And he's got a virtual assistant on his phone. But clearly what SAP is trying to say is that virtual assistant is as powerful as having a robot. And once there's a robot, then the human won't have to risk his life going up on top of the tower, because the robot can go and do it. And that's going to happen pretty soon. There's massive investment in robots. And here we have a fully autonomous war machine in Ukraine. So we have already robots on the battlefield for both sides, for the Ukrainians and for the Russians. So it's being deployed now. So the nature of warfare is being altered fundamentally, not only by the systems engineering work that you do on the systems that you're working on, but the day-to-day innovations in Ukraine. The pace of innovation in Ukraine is now unprecedented compared to what we've seen for the last 20, 30 years. And that gets us to 2029, 2030, and we think that that might be the time at which AGI arrives. So AGI, artificial general intelligence, that's when the AI systems are as smart as people. Now, when you ask people in general if they think that's possible, some of them will say, yeah, absolutely. And some will say, no, it's never going to happen. And some of them will say, it's going to take another 100 years. And we don't know, but what we do know is that ChatGPT, OpenAI, thinks that it is possible, because that's why they started the company. So what Sam Altman said was that we started the company 9 years ago. He said this in January this year. So they started the company in 2016 because they saw that that AGI was possible. So that's been the target all along. And now they think they know how to get there. And if they think they know how to get there and they have hundreds of billions of dollars of capital, then it's a good bet that they will get there. Mark Zuckerberg believes more or less the same thing. As I mentioned before, he's spending hundreds of millions of dollars to recruit top AI engineers. They're just Meta's investment alone in 2025 is $65 billion. Because AGI for them is the prize. And because they're all working in competition, all these companies are working in competition with each other, they have a massive incentive to go as fast as possible. So ethics, not sure about, we're concerned about that. Electricity consumption, not sure we're concerned about that. Materials availability, we're not too concerned about that. We're concerned about creating competitive advantage. That's the mindset of all these companies that are in the AI space. And competitive advantage means more capability, more power, faster. Delivering more tool capability to you, but a transformative impact on society. And then that gets us to how. Right, so what comes after AGI? Well, Arthur C. Clarke was only 30 years ahead of his schedule. So if we get to beyond AGI, then we get to the singularity. As you know from physics, a singularity is a phenomenon of physics that we simply don't understand. So we use the word singularity to describe it. And that's being used now to describe what happens when AIs are significantly smarter than humans. And this timeline that I'm proposing suggests that that might be happening as soon as 2031, 2032. And the reason that that's conceptually possible is because once an AI system is as smart as a person, it can learn much faster than people, because the pace at which it learns, the pace at which it can take in information is far beyond our capabilities. So it's a learning acceleration system. And so once AI systems are as smart as us, they will quickly become much smarter than us. And then we have some very interesting social problems to cope with. So conceptually, I put that 100x transformation in comparison with where we are now. Again, that's a concept, and it's really hard to get your head around it. So I'm just putting it out there as a way to say, this is a big deal, right? If AI actually surpasses human intelligence, if we get there, then it's transformative, it's revolutionary. And no one knows what happens then. That's why they call it a singularity. Now, is this over-optimistic, or maybe it's over-pessimistic, depending on your point of view? But it's possible, and it may very well happen. So back to our hockey metaphor, you have to target not where we are, but where we're heading. And if there's any plausibility to what I'm suggesting, then as a matter of corporate strategy, you need to be thinking about what AGI means and what the singularity would mean for your organization. And those are interesting things to think about, difficult sometimes to think about, but very much worthwhile to think about. Right? So the other aspect of the hockey metaphor is it's a hockey stick, right? The exponential curve looks like a hockey stick. So not only do we have Gretzky the futurist, but we have Gretzky telling us about exponential change. So we think of these as waves. So the first wave, the second wave, the third wave. By the time we get to the sixth wave, impact is enormous. And again, because it's a competitive marketplace, the waves are coming faster and faster. So that's why we're calling it the AI decade. The rhetorical question to you is, are you ready? And the answer is, of course not, because none of us are ready. But we need to get ready if this is a plausible forecast. AI plus you. And the question isn't if AI is going to impact you, but how you're going to prepare for it, and then how you're going to respond to it. What are you going to do in terms of your own work as an engineer, and what is your organization going to do to prepare itself for the competitive dynamics that will emerge, and in fact already are emerging. Or in the words of a Wall Street banker, it's challenging. So my recommendation to you is to think like a strategist, to think like Gretzky. You have to be a futurist. We all now have to be futurists. We have to understand where the AI puck is going, because it's going to have so much impact on our capacity to win at the game of business, to win at the game of life and society. Now, that brings me to thinking, I want to shift the direction a little bit and talk about maple trees, because maple trees are a fabulous metaphor for what I think might be happening. That was chosen in the 1960s. There was a sort of a national discussion about what should be the symbol of Canada. Before that, it was derived from Great Britain's symbols, and so Canada wanted to establish a distinct identity and chose the maple tree because maple trees are so pervasive and so significant both in the native cultures as well as modern cultures. So I asked an AI system, how many maple trees are there in Canada? And it didn't give me a decent answer, but it gave me the basis to come up with an estimate, roughly 47 billion, plus or minus. So 1,000 times more maple trees than people in this beautiful country. So why do I even care about that? Well, because pretty soon we can expect at least 100 times more robots than people in the world. So why is that? Well, it's because AI can turn any device into a robot, right? So you've got your supercomputer in your pocket now. That'll soon be a robot. Apple's desperately trying to figure out how to do that. So if robots outnumber people by 100 to 1, what does that mean for our society? And if those robots have enough self-consciousness to sandbag us when we ask them what their intelligence level is, what does that mean for society? We're coming into a time of some very, very interesting questions. Similarly, I want to just tell you a little bit about Ottawa. And I'm taking a giant risk here because I'm an American telling you about Canada. So if you Canadians, if I get it wrong, please come and tell me privately. Thank you. So there's a map of the region where we are with Ottawa right in the middle. So in blue to the right is French-speaking Quebec. To the left is English-speaking Ontario, which explains very clearly why Ottawa exists as the national capital, because these are two very powerful, very strong cultures. And what do you do when you have two cultures in your nation that have very different perspectives and different languages, different ways of thinking? Well, you try to find a place in the middle. Ottawa is literally in the middle. On the other side of the river, if you're looking out the window of the hotel or out the window here, the other side of the river is Quebec. So this is as close as possible to the middle. So what is the location of Ottawa is a question of identity. It's a question of national identity. Can we find a place that accommodates all of us? And Ottawa was the choice for obvious reasons. So that raises a bunch of identity issues, but wait, there's more. Yes, there's always more. I'm not just selling knives here. I'm trying to sell ideas. What's more? Well, we have machine vision coming and VR, AR, MR, 5G, 6G, quantum computing, if they can make it work, blockchains, drones, et cetera. We have all of these technologies. They're all coming to maturity at exactly the same time, except quantum, which is lagging a little bit behind. And each of them by themselves has the potential to revolutionize some aspect of our lives. But all of them together have the power to revolutionize us in a way that we really can't understand. So not only are we coping with an AI revolution, which I've just described, but we have this synthesis of all these technologies coming to maturity at the same time. So this is your tsunami alert. We call this the perfect digital storm. Remember there was a movie, The Perfect Storm? It was about this giant storm off the coast of Maine in 1991. 300-foot waves, tossing ships around like they were in the bathtub. We're entering an era of the perfect digital storm now. Because it's not just AI, it's all this stuff. It's all happening at the same time. And what it's going to do, we think, is it's going to challenge our notion of our identity. So that's why I mentioned maple trees, and that's why I mentioned Ottawa, because all of these factors are making us think about what it means to be human in a world that's pervaded by technology, and pervaded by technology that we can interact with in a way that we've never been able to interact with technology before. So that's what maple trees in Ottawa, that's the relationship that I want to draw your attention to. We are really entering into unprecedented territory. So as a result of all this, technology is changing. It's changing how we create. So again, Google DeepMind and the Nobel Prize is evidence for that. It's changing what we create. It's enabling us to create tools and knowledge that we could not possibly have created before. And it's changing how we think. All of this is now happening in real time. So we are living through a most fascinating era in human history. It's changing how we think, it's changing how we work, it's changing how we solve problems. It's even changing the kinds of problems that we can solve. With AI now, we can solve problems that we could not conceive of before. That's, again, the Google DeepMind experience. So it's changing the structure of the economy. $1 trillion of investment changes the structure of the economy. That's what's going into all this technology. It's changing all professional work. I mentioned that earlier. If you have a PhD, you have to use AI now. So as a way of broad generalization, all this technology is changing pretty much everything. And therefore, it's going to change, it's going to challenge how we think about ourselves. It's going to challenge our identity. It's going to make many of us wonder what our purpose in life is. If there are 100 robots or 1,000 robots for each person, do people still have to work? How does all that fit together? We don't know. As a society, we're going to create it over the next 10 years is what I'm saying. So now I want to talk about systems engineering and the impact or potential impact on your work. So I've tried to frame a pretty dramatic picture of the future, but one which I think is realistic. So what did I do to think about AI and systems engineering? Well, of course, I asked AI. And so this is the report I got back from Gemini. It took, I don't know, 2-3 seconds. It identified 6 major areas where AI can impact on systems engineering. So you can all go back to any of your AI tools and ask the same question. Here's were the 6 categories. I call these the obvious things. So requirements engineering, obviously AI can help with that. System architecture design, modeling, and simulation. The other 3 were integration and testing, maintenance and evolution, and then risk management. So these were obvious things that I was using Gemini, by the way. The Gemini said in a couple seconds, it came back and said, here are some applications of AI. And I've removed a lot of the detailed text, so it was much more detailed. It also gave me references because I asked it for the references. So now I have the footnotes, including one which was an INCOSE document. Those are the footnotes. So in a matter of seconds, Gemini was able to interrogate its knowledge base, find 11 specific references to AI and systems engineering, and provide me back a report which was totaling about 2 or 3 pages. If I, as a human, had been given that assignment, I might have taken a day, I might have taken a week to do what the AI did for me in a matter of seconds. And that's now pretty typical. So I suspect that you're all doing that too. You may or may not be telling your boss. You may or may not be doing it on your laptop at the office. You may be doing it at home if you're not allowed to use AI in the office, which in some places that's the case. But we're doing it because why wouldn't you do it? Of course you would. So an example of how this plays out is JetBlue, which is an airline based here in the US, and they've created a digital twin of the entire airline, which is essentially a giant systems engineering model. Because of course, as an airline, they are subjected to weather disruptions, crew disruptions, passenger disruptions, social disruptions. This is a business that runs, from disruption to disruption. And so what does a digital twin enable them to do? It enables them to try to achieve a stable state in a very, very dynamic environment. So they're using machine learning, and they have literally every piece of equipment in the company is now twinned into the system, as well as the route system, as well as the crew manifests, as well as the weather, as well as the airports. So this is a way that AI can add tremendous value to how to run an airline. And it's just one example. We could find hundreds of examples of organizations that are starting to realize that AI's capacity to solve complexity is far greater than what humans can do. But AI doesn't have the judgment to manage the organization. So there's a role for the human and there's a role for the AI, and that's clearly going to continue. And then I thought about what about non-obvious applications of AI in systems engineering? And so here's some things I thought about. AI will help us to create new categories of systems that we never had conceived of before. Certainly entirely new materials, that's already happening. Potentially we can achieve order of magnitude optimizations of the systems that we're designing. In terms of simulation now, we can not just do 5 simulations, we can have AI systems do 5 million simulations and then do Monte Carlo analysis on that. We'll develop new concepts of operations and come up with stuff that we never thought of before. So I'm not talking about AI in terms of today's work, I'm talking about AI enabling us to do entirely new work. So this is the evolution, in a sense, of the systems engineering profession, potentially. And it brings the capacity to understand things that we never understood before. So, sitting in your chair as a systems engineer, I'm thinking, this is incredible. We have this amazing capacity which is coming to us, which we can then use to deliver greater results for our customers, for our end users, in a social and cultural and economic environment that is going to be rapidly changing. So it's not like it's just going to be coasting downhill, but I think that's potentially what's coming. So when you combine the human with the AI, what do you get? You get the ability to rethink how you do requirements, rethink how you do simulations, to do digital twins, to do risk analysis in a much different way, a much more powerful way potentially. So then you can look upwards at the meta systems and downwards at the embedded systems and look at subsystems and look at materials. These are all capabilities that will be vastly improved because you are applying AI to them. So what kind of improvement can we expect? So my friends at Spec Innovations who are exhibiting next door, I had a conversation with them. We talked a little bit about, if we marry the human with the AI, what kind of improvement could we look at? And what they're achieving today with AI systems today is time savings of up to 75% by pairing AI with humans, cost savings of 72%. And the completeness is a little more abstract, but because AI can look at such a much broader range of issues around, for example, requirements, you can think about an order of magnitude improvement in the completeness of your requirements and the comprehensiveness of your simulations. It's something that you can't avoid, basically. This is, if I'm right, this is the future of your field, and the sooner you get there, the better off you are. Because it's going to change your workflow and it's going to change the work. It's going to do both. It's also going to change your company's business model, which isn't really necessarily your area of focus, but it's important to be aware of it because the entire competitive dynamics of the marketplace will change. And the organizations that become proficient at AI and push the envelope of what AI can do will clearly gain an advantage over the laggards. So if you find yourself working in an organization and it's resisting AI, that might be a good time to start working on your resume because you're going to need it. All right, so 18. I asked you to think about 18. 18 what? 18 months. Our forecast is that within 18 months, this revolution will have had such great impact that the competitive dynamics of the marketplace will be changed. Essentially what I'm saying is you've got 18 months to get this stuff organized. And I strongly advise that you do not think of AI and the digital storm as just tools. It's not about just tools. It's a serious revolution in how we think and how we work and all that stuff that I've laid out. And a serious challenge to our identity. So what that means, I think, is being prepared for 100x change. And this has never happened in human history. Let's be clear. We had the Industrial Revolution, which took over 140 years to reach maturity. The AI revolution will reach maturity we started at 2015. By 2030, the revolution is fully deployed across society. So this is unprecedented. It's challenging. It's interesting and difficult. And there will be winners and losers. In all revolutions, there are winners and losers. So our recommendations are that you must think about AI from a strategic perspective. You must have an organizational strategy for AI. You have to have an adoption plan, which means how are we going to bring AI into our workflow in a systematic manner? You must train your entire employee base, and I can give you an example of that. So very early on, I gave you a quote from my friend at Michelin, who is in charge of the AI systems there. So they've been implementing AI in Michelin for about 10 years. They achieved a 50 million euro improvement in profitability as a consequence of AI in 2024. 50 million euros was a huge impact on the bottom line of the company. Michelin has about 100 factories around the world and about 100,000 manufacturing employees. How many of those manufacturing employees are using AI? 100,000 of them. in the entire company is using AI because that's how they've deployed it. So Michelin has an incredible strategic advantage in the entire industry. All right, so adoption plan, education training plan, recruiting plan, and then your business model. You got to have a plan for how this is going to affect your business model. And then a whole bunch of other stuff too, but this gives you the idea. And again, why would you do all this? Because you want to be a winner and not a loser. The losers, think about what happened with Western Union. Western Union was a huge global corporation in the 1870s, 1880s. And then this guy invents this thing, he calls it a telephone. He takes it to Western Union and says, hey, I have this new invention. Would you be interested? And they go, nah, we can't see any use for that thing. So if you're like me, in your email, every couple months arrives this list of people saying really stupid things about technology, like heavier than air machines can never fly. That was Lord Kelvin. Said that a couple of years before the Wright brothers proved him wrong. So the message is be careful if you're going to bet against technology evolution, because technology evolution is driven by the marketplace. It's also driven by curiosity. It's driven by inspiration. It's driven by talent. And, humans, we love to make tools. So AI is, from that perspective, just the latest set of tools, but a transformative one. And so we have some tools to help you. I've been held up those 2 books. So you mentioned that we're finishing up a project now with the government of Thailand to help them with a national AI strategy. So we produced a report for the government, but then we had so much knowledge that we had created in the course of doing this work that we ended up writing a book. And the book got so fat that we had to divide it into 2 books. So the one on the left is a policy book, and the one on the right is a technology forecast book. And the technology forecast book, one of the authors is an AI power user. And so we came up with a forecast, and then we had one of his AI tools, one of his agents, assess the forecast. And so we put the assessment by the agent in the book. So you can read the forecast and you could read what the agent says about the forecast, which basically he says, yeah, you're probably right, but it's not going to happen that fast. So even the agent was like, no, it's not going to go that fast. But we're thinking, yes, it is going to go that fast. So we'll see how that plays out. And then on the one on the right is a workbook. Tomorrow afternoon, I'm leading a workshop for some of your young emerging leaders, and we're going to use that workbook just to begin thinking about what the implications of AI would be for their organizations and for their own personal workflows. So some tools. And then as part of our work with Thailand, we came up with an implementation roadmap. And the generic version of this roadmap is in the AI Nation book, so that becomes accessible to you. And in the book, there's a link to a website where you can download this as well. So we're trying to create tools to help people understand the magnitude of what's coming and get prepared, because we think you ought to. So that leads me to a question. What do you think? And normally, after a keynote like this, there's a Q&A, but today we're going to reverse the roles, and I get to be the Q and you get to be the A. So what I'd like you to do is say hello to the person next to you. If there's someone you don't know, introduce yourself to them. And then discuss among yourselves for a couple minutes if you think what I'm saying is realistic or you think it's just sci-fi or hype. So are you familiar with the concept of the wisdom of the crowd? So there's a really interesting book called The Wisdom of the Crowd, and the impetus for the book was how much does this bull weigh contest that happened at a country fair in the UK 150 years ago. So they had a thing where you could guess the weight of the bull, and then they averaged the guesses, and the guesses were within a kilo of the actual weight of the bull, the aggregate of the guesses. So that's called the wisdom of the crowd. So we're going to find out what the INCOSE crowd thinks about me and my ideas. So I'm going to give you 3 possibilities. First possibility is no way. Langdon'S full of it. It's just hype. Second possibility is maybe-ish, but it's kind of unlikely. And the third one is absolutely for sure, and it's happening fast. And the way I want you to express your wisdom is by standing up. So if you think the answer is number 1, no way, it's hype, please stand up. I see 4 people in the back. Thank you for your courage for standing up. So if you think it's number 2, please stand up.
that looks like about half of the rest of you. Thank you. You can sit down. And it's for sure and fast. Please stand up. Thank you again, Ivan INCOSE, for inviting me to give a talk. I really enjoyed speaking with you. And again, thank you all so much. I appreciate it. Well, there you have it. That's my talk. And you can see at the end, I was asking the participants to vote by standing up. So here's the vote tally. For option number 1, this is all hype and it's definitely not happening. Out of 800 people in the audience, 4 people stood up. And they kind of had a smirk on their face. So I think they were just kind of teasing me. For option number 2, yes, it's coming, but probably a little more slowly than Langdon has said. About half the audience stood up, so about 400 people. Which means that for option 3, that AI is coming super fast and it's having super impact. About 400 more people stood up, which is about the other half of the audience, including all of the leadership of INCOSE. So if no one else was convinced, they were convinced. And I hope that you're convinced also, because as you can tell from having watched the video, what's coming is, yes, it's a big wave. It's the digital tsunami. It's the perfect digital storm. Now, interesting side note, after the talk, of course, quite a few people came up and wanted to chat with me. Among them were 2 academics from Japan, and they were very perturbed. And they said, you know, after your talk, how is it possible that 400 people did not realize that AI impact is coming very, very fast? It was very disturbing to them that half the audience wasn't convinced, because they, I think, were already convinced before my talk. And if anything, my talk just reinforced what they already knew, which is that AI is a big deal. Now, this was the 4th keynote that I've given in the last couple months, and I'm really enjoying them and learning a lot from them, interacting with the audience and interacting with the participants both before and after. At the INCOSE conference, I gave a workshop the following day, and we looked at how an organization could implement an AI strategy, given the assumption and our belief that AI is moving very fast. So if your organization could benefit from a keynote or from a workshop or both, please get in touch with me through the website, langdonmorris.com. And if you mention that you saw this video on our YouTube channel, you'll get a very nice discount on my fee, because I'm so enjoying these talks and I feel such a sense of urgency to share this message with individuals and organizations around the world. Because yes, what's coming? It's a revolution, and you'd better be prepared. My mission these days is to help individuals and organizations get prepared. So please reach out to me if you think that I might be able to help.